on? Gaming here, back with another Epic 7 video, and today we're looking at Zone 3 in Ancient Inheritance. For us, it's day 4 and day 5, so we put them two together. But here's the overall map for Zone 3. So we do have two starting points, one on the left, one on the right, very similar to the previous map, right? But this time you're going to want to split up into a few more teams. So ideally, at each starting point, you're going to have two teams. You're going to have two players, 2 to 3, I would say, hit the top mini boss, and 2 to 3 hit the bottom mini boss. And on each side, there are two mini bosses that you will need to take out if you want to reach the Wardens, which are going to be at the very bottom of the map. And there's also going to be one at the very top. So ideally, you would have a total of 4 teams, 2 to hit the top 2 mini bosses and 2 teams to hit the bottom mini bosses. After that, you'll be able to open up the Wardens on the top and the bottom. As I mentioned, the bottom one is an Ice Warden. So if you're bringing in units that are not Earth units, you do get a minus 15% in your stats. But for the most part, as long as you're keeping up with the same team comps, you should be fine. It's not that big of a disadvantage for both. The top one is a Dark Warden. If they're not ML units, you do get a minus 15% in stats on that one. So try to bring in at least 1 DPS of that element, so you can deal as much damage as possible if you don't have an entire team of that element that you're supposed to bring. But I think that in Zone 3, you can be a bit more lenient. I think for us, we have a little over 9 days left. So there is one more zone after this, which is Zone 4. This zone, I think, has the better rewards from the treasure chest. So for us, I believe we started here on the left and we started working our way down. I think we picked up the 2 chests here and we picked up the book and still had enough to hit the Banshee at least twice, I think. But for the most part, if you're bringing in, if you have a decent enough hero pool, I think that 2 people can potentially take out 1 mini boss. So that leaves at least 1 more person that can then go in and start scouting further on. But some people at this point choose to take on the mini bosses in the middle. So you'll see that the golem one here has 2 gold transmit stones, and I think those could potentially be really worth. The mini boss on the bottom has 2 leaves, and I think that the one on the top has like that reforge material or the gem chest, and the one in the middle has one of those charms. I think if anything, the ones that are going to be most beneficial are probably the transmit stones and potentially that artifact charm. So I think that for sure the mini boss, the golem on the bottom, is going to be definitely worth if your team is able to take out the Warden here at the bottom, and then maybe 1 person can scout out this golem boss and work on that while everybody else jumps into the main zone boss and it tries to work on him. But let's continue here with our gameplay and our walkthrough. So today, it looks like I mentioned we did still have to, well, or day number 4, we did have to finish off the boss monster in Zone 2 because most of our guildies are slightly behind, so most of them are still catching up. We did have enough provisions to take out the final floor boss on zone number 2. This one, like I mentioned, most of the bosses here you can run the exact same teams for all of them, and I think that's great, especially if you're able to bring in a lot of defense breaks. You know, we are playing on both of our accounts, on our main account and our alt. For some reason, I feel that the alt is able to put in more damage, even though we have less units. Not really sure what's going on there, but you'll see there. I think we got up to like 3 million points on the Zone 2 floor boss. We just needed, I think, 2 more hits on this Zone 2 boss to take him out. So it wasn't too bad, but you know, we use up the provisions now, and then everybody else, it opens up the gate for every other guildie that we have so that they can go in and rush the mini bosses so that we can go in and start working on hopefully zone 3 boss soon, or at least the wardens, right? Like that's the main goal. Try to rush the mini bosses so you can get to the wardens on the bottom and the top floor. It's all here. It was a Fire Ravi solo, but after this, we're able to open up the portal to zone number 3. And in zone number 3, I mentioned, I think this zone is where you can be a bit more lenient depending on what your goals are for the guild. You know, everyone's goal should be to finish zone 4, right? So you can get every single piece of equipment from the rewards list. But here, you know, we decided to go towards the bottom Banshee. And, you know, if you have a Commander Arena built up, or if you just have her, she is really, really good for the Banshee on the bottom. You know, we were able to get a few more tokens from these scrolls. So again, you ideally are going to be picking up those books, relics, and here I think that the chests are definitely worth it. As you can see here, we get some EXP, some more of the currency to hopefully buy the rest of that gear from the shop. But the books here, you know, 680 XP, that's pretty decent EXP, especially since we're trying to max out our classes. This chest here gives us 3 leaves, which is actually pretty nice. After that, we're left with, I think like 12 or 15 provisions. This Banshee does use up 6 provisions each. So you saw we interacted with quite a bit of things and still had enough to at least hit the Banshee twice. And if we would have done a slightly better job with our first team, I think we could have hit this Banshee for 50% of its HP. You know, we're bringing in just the regular team comps. I think here though, if you do have at least 1 dark elemental unit for every team that you bring in, so if you're still doing the dual attack thing, I think that's probably going to be better than trying to bring just 1 DPS. We noticed that bringing in, you know, 2 to 3 DPS was able to deal a bit more damage, and so it kind of pushed up our total. But you know, we're trying the regular dual attack with the 1 DPS, right? And even though it did somewhat work, we didn't put up a lot of damage. And the thing about these Banshees is that they're immune to defense break, right? So here it's just pure raw damage. The good thing about this comp though is that it lets you generate a lot of souls. And so when you're generating all souls, you get a lot of value out of the Luna Soulburn S1, because like I mentioned, you want a lot of damage and she's able to put up a lot of raw damage. So I think we end up getting to almost 400k. Like I mentioned, ideally we should have probably brought another DPS just to get some more hits in, because the dual attacks here are not the problem. It's the amount of damage that we're dealing, right? And since we're only bringing in 1 unit to deal damage without a defense break, it's a bit more difficult for us. So, you know, one thing to note is keep up with your class enhancements. You know, after we did that fight, I had to go back and check to see if we still had tokens, and we still had quite a few tokens that we needed to use for our class enhancement. So we had like 14 or 18 tokens, something like that. We end up maxing out the warrior class, and again, I'm pretty sure that also helped us with putting in a lot of damage into this Banshee. But the last team that you'll see here is the Commander Arena team. We did bring in Helga and Emilia for as much uptime on the attack buff as possible. We want to put the attack buff on Commander Arena because, as you'll see, she does a lot of damage. Even if we can't get defense breaks with the Helga, we want to cycle the Commander Arena as much as possible and then generate souls, right? We want to generate souls so that we can soul burn Commander Arena's S3 into S1. And then it just helps her cycle her S3 a lot faster. She is able to put in a lot of damage with the regular Fire Lilias here. You'll see, I think we ended up soul burning this one into the S1, putting in a lot of damage. That attack buff uptime is actually really great. But you know, one of the things here is that even though I'm really enjoying Ancient Inheritance, I feel like it's still a bit difficult if you don't have a lot of guildies, a lot of people that are active in your guild, because then a few players are going to have to kind of pick up the slack, right? So it would be actually pretty cool if we had devices or like bonus effects for players that maybe got farther or further the fastest, or maybe the ones that first hit the bosses, maybe if they got buffs, maybe they got additional provisions or something like that, right? When fighting at least, or maybe they got a discount when they were fighting bosses on provisions, just so they could do more attacks, right? Because if you only have a handful of people that are able to hit mini bosses and deal damage, it makes clearing those a bit more difficult. But let me know your thoughts about this week's zone. Have you reached zone 3? Are you already on your way to zone 4? Let me know in the comment section below. Like always, if you haven't enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hey, think about subscribing. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people like you who like content like this. Like always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.